I thought surprising my parents with an $875,000 beachfront home would be the happiest moment of their lives. My name is Mason Bridgeway, and for 3 years, I'd been planning the perfect gift for the two people who gave up everything so my sister and I could have a better life. But when I walked through that door unannounced one Thursday afternoon, what I saw made my blood run cold. My 6'4" brother in law, Trent, had my father by the collar, lifting my 60-year-old dad off the floor as if he weighed nothing. My mother was crying on the marble tiles I'd chosen because she'd always dreamed of floors that shined like water. And my sister Roxy stood nearby, smiling in that familiar way she used to when she'd steal my Halloween candy and pin the blame on me. "This house belongs to us now," Trent growled, spit flying as he shook my father like a rag doll. "These old fools don't deserve it. They're too old, too weak to live in a place like this." My father, Dennis Bridgeway, who'd spent 35 years running into burning buildings as Cincinnati's most decorated fire chief, was gasping for air. My mother, Patricia, who had shaped young minds as Oakwood Elementary's beloved librarian, pleaded through her tears. "Please, Trent, you're hurting him. This is our son's gift. Mason worked so hard for this." "Mason," Roxy laughed, glancing at her fresh manicure as our dad struggled to breathe. "Perfect Mason can buy another house. We need this one. We deserve this one. Mom, Dad, you're going to die in a few years anyway. Why waste this house on people who won't live long enough to enjoy it?" It was all calculated. They'd hijacked my anniversary surprise, driven my parents 7 hours to Florida under false pretenses, and were trying to force them to sign over the deed to the home I'd bought with 15 years of savings. This was meant to be my parents' dream retirement home, a gift for all the years they lived with a leaking roof because they spent their money on our education instead of themselves. I froze for 3 seconds that felt like hours, watching my father's face redden, my mother reaching for him helplessly, and my sister silently counting on her fingers, likely calculating the resale value. They hadn't seen me yet. They didn't know I'd driven through the night from Atlanta after Mom's terrified voicemail, that I'd been recording everything through the window for 5 minutes, or that 2 Clearwater police cruisers were waiting around the corner for my signal. What happened next changed our family forever and taught me that blood doesn't always mean loyalty, and sometimes the family you choose becomes the one that truly matters. Growing up in a modest Cincinnati suburb, my parents gave Roxy and me everything they could, and more. Our Maple Street home wasn't impressive. Chipped aluminum siding, a cracked driveway, and a porch that leaned slightly after the foundation settled. But inside, it was filled with something money couldn't buy: sacrifice, stability, and unconditional love. Dad spent 35 years in the Cincinnati Fire Department, working his way from rookie to fire chief through grit and compassion. He'd return home at dawn, smelling of smoke and exhaustion, his uniform still damp from the hoses. Yet he never missed a baseball game of mine or one of Roxy's recitals. "Family comes first," he'd remind us every Sunday dinner, hands clasped in prayer. "Everything else is just details." Mom ran Oakwood Elementary's library for nearly 3 decades, transforming it into what everyone called the heart of the school. Kids who couldn't afford lunch would find bills tucked inside their returned books. Parents struggling to make ends meet discovered their late fees had mysteriously disappeared. She worked late every day, then came home to cook dinner, help with homework, and make thrift store clothes look special. "It's not what you wear," she'd tell Roxy, adjusting a secondhand dress. "It's how you carry yourself that matters." Those values carried me through college, through 14-hour days building my real estate business, and through every handshake and contract. While other brokers celebrated deals with luxury cars and country club dinners, I lived in a small studio and saved every dollar. They laughed at my 10-year-old Honda, but they didn't see what I saw every Sunday: bills piling up, a shrinking pension, and the lingering cost of Mom's back surgery. Then there was Roxy, always chasing dreams that ended in debt. A boutique that lasted 3 months, a food truck that never launched, a wellness center that cost $70,000 and failed. Every time, my parents stepped in, refinancing or dipping into retirement to bail her out. "She just needs to find her path," Mom would say, defending her. Meanwhile, Dad took extra shifts, his body aching, his back giving out, but still pushing through because Roxy needed help again. When Roxy married Trent Diont 5 years ago, we hoped she'd found stability. He showed up in designer suits, talked about running restaurants in Miami, and promised success was just one investment away. Dad believed in him so much, he cashed out his entire 401k to help them open Dumont's Catch in downtown Cincinnati. "I won't let you down, Dennis," Trent had said, gripping Dad's hand. "This restaurant will take care of all of us." It lasted 8 months. Creditors called my parents' house after learning Trent had listed them as guarantors without their knowledge. Equipment was repossessed. Employees sued for unpaid wages. Trent blamed everyone but himself, and Roxy blamed Dad for not investing more. That night, I made a decision. I'd just closed the biggest deal of my career, a $40 million office complex that brought in my largest commission yet. All I could think about was my parents' upcoming 35th anniversary, Dad turning 60, and the fact they were still sleeping under a leaky roof because they kept putting us before themselves. They deserved better. They deserved peace. So I decided to give it to them. The plan was simple. They'd go to Roxy's for their usual Thursday dinner. While they were gone, movers would pack their essentials. When they returned, they'd find a letter explaining everything, plane tickets for the next morning, and keys to their new home in Clearwater Beach. Instead, my phone blew up with missed calls at 2 a.m. that Thursday. 17 from Mom, 3 from Dad, and a voicemail that emptied me out. Between sobs, Mom managed, "Mason, something terrible has happened. Roxy and Trent know about the house. They took us. Please come home. Please help." I was in Atlanta finishing an inspection when the calls came. I didn't even go back to the hotel. I drove 8 hours through the night, gripping the wheel while Dad's texts came in. Each one stranger than the last. "Don't come. We're handling it. Your sister's confused. It's fine." Those weren't Dad's usual clipped enthusiastic messages. They were short and resigned. He never used periods. He used exclamation points. This felt like control, not calm. I pulled into our old neighborhood at noon to find the house stripped. Not just empty, but cleared out. The kitchen window was open, curtains gone. Mrs. Chen from next door met me at the curb, shaking, and told me Roxy and Trent had left with my parents the day before. She'd seen Trent loading boxes and grabbing my dad so hard she feared he'd break his arm. I asked if she'd called police. Dad had begged her not to. A family matter, he said, but she'd never seen them so frightened. Then it hit me. The birthday card I'd left with our family attorney that mentioned the address. Roxy must have intercepted it, maybe through the attorney's ex who worked in the office. My surprise had become an ambush. The 7-hour drive to Clearwater felt like years. I called Dad 18 times. It went straight to voicemail. Mom's phone was off. Roxy read my texts but didn't answer. Every mile made me imagine worse. When I turned onto Sunset Shore Drive and saw the villa, my stomach dropped. The Mediterranean house I'd bought as a symbol of freedom looked like a prison. Trent's black Escalade sat crooked across the driveway, a tire crushing the hibiscus I'd picked for Mom. Through the big front windows, I watched a scene that made my jaw tighten. Mom on her knees by the island, sobbing. Dad backed against the wall by the fridge, Trent with his fist in Dad's collar, lifting him. "Sign it," Trent snarled. "Sign the deed transfer, old man, or I'll make sure you never see your precious daughter again. You think Mason bought this to control you? We're doing you a favor." Roxy stood at the counter, examining her manicure and smiling at Mom's distress like it was background music to her win. Mom begged, "This is Mason's gift. We can't steal from our own son." Roxy shot back that Mason could buy another house and that they deserved this one. I watched Dad's face change. Something inside him snapped. He clutched his chest and went red. I froze outside that window for exactly 3 seconds, long enough to feel the rage, but also to make a cold calculation. Bursting in on fury would escalate things. So I started recording through the glass, making sure to capture Trent's grip, Mom on the floor, and Roxy's indifference. The video would be crucial, but I needed more, proof of motive and pattern. On the drive, I'd grabbed a folder from my office safe. Trent's gambling debts from 3 casinos totaling $97,000, forged checks I'd found from Mom's account, and credit union footage showing Roxy withdrawing money with Dad's stolen ATM card on 12 occasions. I'd been protecting my parents from the ugly truth, but now those documents were evidence. I called my real estate attorney, Jim Crawford, and explained the coercion. Freeze any deed transfer attempts on the Clearwater property, I said. Pull up title showing I'm the sole owner and send it to the county sheriff. I asked him to alert the Florida State Attorney's Office about attempted grand theft and elder abuse. Then I called Officer Carlos Martinez, Trent's probation officer back in Ohio, who confirmed Trent wasn't supposed to leave the state. He said he'd contact the U.S. Marshals and local Florida police if I sent the video. I uploaded the recording to a secure server and sent Martinez the link. I used the smart home app I'd insisted on during closing. The previous owner had wired cameras in every room. I activated them all to record to the cloud, then made an announcement I hoped would have maximum psychological impact. I shut off every light in the house simultaneously. The screams from inside started immediately. Trent let go of Dad and stumbled back into the dark. Roxy screamed, startled, while Mom called out for Dad, who managed to reply, his voice weak but steady. I waited 5 seconds before turning the power back on. Then I used the home's intercom system, letting my voice fill every room. Trent Diant and Roxanne Bridgeway Diant, you are being recorded on 12 cameras. This footage is streaming live to the Clearwater Police Department and the Florida State Attorney's Office. Through the window, Roxy's face drained of color as Trent spun around, looking for cameras he couldn't locate. I continued evenly. The assault on Dennis Bridgeway has been documented. The attempted theft through coercion has been recorded. Trent, your probation officer has been notified of your interstate violation. U.S. Marshals are en route. Then I walked to the front door, entered calmly with my key, holding a folder of evidence in one hand and my phone in the other, showing a countdown. 4 minutes until law enforcement arrived. You have that long to release my father and sit quietly, I said, looking directly at Trent. Or you can make this worse for yourself. Your choice. His face twisted through anger and fear before he barked. You think you're clever? Your sister deserves this house more. They're old. They'll die soon anyway. I didn't move. Trent, you're being recorded from 6 angles. Every step you take adds another year to your sentence. He froze. Get your hands off my father, I said evenly, keeping eye contact. The room was charged with tension, broken only by the sound of waves outside. Trent straightened, trying to recover. Your parents agreed to sign. We've been here for hours. They want us to have it. Tell him, Dennis. Dad pushed off the wall, his fire chief composure returning. We agreed to nothing. You threatened us, dragged us here, and tried to steal from my son. It's not stealing when it's family, Roxy shouted, stepping forward, tears running down her face. But they were for effect. You don't understand, Mason. The restaurant failure ruined us. We're losing our apartment. Mom and Dad were going to help. Mom stood, wiping her tears with quiet strength. We've helped you for 15 years, Roxanne. $300,000. Our entire retirement, every emergency fund, every vacation we skipped, every repair we postponed. Trent's control broke, and you held it over our heads. Every dinner, every family visit, judging us like failures. You are failures, I said calmly, opening the folder. Not because you failed in business, but because you stole from the people who loved you. I laid out the first document. Pacific Coast Casino, $43,000 in gambling debt, paid with checks from Mom's account. Seminole Hard Rock, $28,000, same pattern. Should I go on? Trent's color drained as Roxy gripped the counter. That's impossible, she whispered. We never touched their accounts. I showed printouts of security footage. January 15th, $2,000 withdrawal. January 28th, $3,000. February 3rd, $5,000. The bank flagged it, but Dad told them it was authorized because he refused to believe his daughter would steal from him. Dad looked hollow. You knew for 6 months. I nodded. I hired a forensic accountant when I noticed discrepancies. I didn't tell you because I hoped she'd change. You self-righteous idiot! Trent lunged at me, his punch slow and wild. I sidestepped, and he slammed face first into the marble column at the entryway. The crack of his nose was followed by his shout of pain as he fell, blood covering his hands. You broke my nose. You assaulted me. I'll sue you. Actually, said a new voice from the doorway, the only assault here is yours, Mr. Diant. Sheriff Martinez entered with 4 deputies, showing footage on his tablet. Behind them, EMTs rushed to help Dad while another treated Trent's injury. "We've been watching the live stream for 10 minutes, Martinez said, pulling out handcuffs. "Trent Dion, you're under arrest for assault, battery, attempted grand theft, probation violation, and crossing state lines without authorization." "This is entrapment," Trent yelled. "He set us up. Mason planned this." "I planned to give my parents a gift," I replied. "You planned a crime." As they cuffed him, Roxy ran to Trent, panic replacing her fake tears. "You can't arrest him. We're the victims. Mason has everything. Our parents chose him over me." Martinez stayed professional. "Ma'am, would you like to explain the $70,000 in fraudulent withdrawals from your parents' accounts? We have proof." Roxy turned to Mom and Dad, breaking down. "You're really letting them do this? You're choosing him over your own daughter?" Mom approached, standing tall. "We're not choosing anyone, Roxanne. You made your choice when you decided to betray and steal from us. You chose greed over gratitude. You chose theft over trust." Dad added quietly, "When you're ready to be our daughter again instead of our thief, we'll be here, but not before you take responsibility." Roxy's face twisted with anger. "You'll regret this. When you're old and dying, don't expect me to care. Mason won't always be there." "No," I said, holding up paperwork. "They'll be protected. This restraining order means if you come within 500 feet of them or this property, you'll join Trent in jail." As deputies led them out, Trent cursing, Roxy sobbing, the house fell silent except for the steady sound of waves beyond the glass. Mom collapsed into Dad's arms, both clinging to each other after 35 years of shared strength. I stood watching them, drained as the adrenaline faded into quiet sadness. "Mason," Dad said softly, his voice raspy, "we can't accept this house. Not after what it's caused. Not after what it revealed." "This house didn't cause any of this, Dad," I said, sitting on the marble floor and feeling the weight of all 38 years of my life. "It only revealed what was already there. Roxy and Trent had been stealing from you for years. The house just exposed it." We sat together on the living room floor of that beautiful home with its high ceilings and ocean view, eating Chinese takeout from paper containers, just like we used to in our small kitchen on Maple Street. Mom found her old honeymoon brochures in one of the boxes I'd moved. Clearwater Beach, faded and yellowed but carefully kept. "I used to look at these when you kids were little," she whispered, tracing a finger over the same beach now visible through her window. "I never thought I'd actually live here. I just wanted to walk on that sand once before I died." "Now you can walk on it every day," I said, gently squeezing her hand. The legal process was quick. Trent was sentenced to 18 months for violating probation, assault, and attempted grand theft. During the trial, his gambling debts surfaced, linking him to dangerous people who wanted answers. Within a week of his sentencing, Roxy filed for divorce and vanished to Arizona with a man she'd secretly been seeing for months. The forensic accountant discovered she'd been living a double life, stealing from our parents while pretending to be single and orphaned to her boyfriend. 6 months later, she sent a short message. "I'm getting help. I'm sorry. Maybe someday I can make this right." Mom replied with only 4 words, "We'll always love you." But the real closure came a year later on Dad's 61st birthday. A knock came at the door, and a young couple stood there with a 2-year-old boy. The woman began crying before she even spoke. "Mr. Bridgeway? Fire Chief Bridgeway?" she asked. "You probably don't remember me. I'm Jennifer Walsh. 15 years ago, you pulled me from my apartment fire on Vine Street. I was 17, pregnant, and terrified. You stayed with me in the ambulance, held my hand, told me my baby would be okay." She motioned to the toddler clinging to her leg. "This is Dennis. I named him after you. We saw your photo in the local newsletter and had to come. Thank you. You didn't just save 1 life that night, you saved 2. After they left, Dad stood by the windows, watching the sunset turn the Gulf golden. Mom slipped her hand into his. "You know what I've learned through all this?" he said softly. "We spent years trying to save Roxy, pouring everything into someone who didn't want saving. But you can't rescue someone who refuses to change. And the ones who do want saving," Mom added, glancing at me through tears, "they're all around us. Family isn't about blood, Mason. It's about who shows up when the fire starts, literally or otherwise. You showed up. You always have." The beach house became more than a gift. It became a symbol. Proof that the best response to those who try to take everything from you is to keep living well. Every sunrise mom watches from her kitchen window, every fish dad catches from his boat, every dinner shared with friends who've become their true family. It all shows that love isn't about endless sacrifice. It's about knowing when to stop giving to those who only take. On my last visit, Dad had framed something new in his office. Not his fire department medals or commendations, but the house receipt with the note I'd written. For 35 years of sacrifice. Now it's your turn to live. Underneath, he'd added his own words. The best gift isn't the house. It's learning which doors to open and which ones to lock for good. Some doors, once locked, protect everything that truly matters inside. My parents are proof that it's never too late to start over, to build the life you deserve, surrounded by people who truly love you, in a place you once only dreamed about. If this story spoke to you, if you faced family who confuse love with entitlement, or if you believe good parents deserve peace, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below with your own experiences about choosing real family over toxic ties. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories about family, redemption, and the cost of both. Thank you for listening. Remember, sometimes the best gift you can give someone isn't just a house. It's the permission to finally put themselves first.